Greetings, traveler of the leaves. Tonight, I'll be your guide on a path that isn't walked with feet, but with the heart. What I'm about to tell you isn't written in the scrolls of the hidden leaf, nor in the elders' archives. It's a story whispered by the wind, held in the silence of those who wait. They speak of a name, Shikamaru, also known as Master of Shadows. I see you've arrived with your eyes lowered, like someone who's run too far, or lost too much. Maybe you're tired, maybe searching for something you no longer remember by name. So come, sit here with me beneath this old tree, where the leaves don't fall. They remember, the ground is soft, the wind is gentle, and for now, the world can wait. Let the words drift slowly, like a quiet rain. Here, everything moves with care. Nothing needs to be conquered, only felt, only remembered. Ready? Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let my voice carry you back to before the pain, to within yourself. On the hill overlooking the hidden leaf village, where the grass grows tall and the clouds move like old friends across the sky, there sits a young man who carries more than his years should allow. His name is Shikamaru, and tonight, like so many nights before, he's watching the world turn beneath him. Have you ever noticed how clouds never hurry? They drift with a patience that makes the rushing world below seem almost foolish. Shikamaru understands this. He's learned that the best answers come not from the quick mind, but from the quiet one, the mind that waits, the mind that watches. Troublesome, he whispers to the evening air, but his voice carries no irritation, only a deep, gentle tiredness. It's the kind of tiredness that comes not from running too far, but from thinking too much, from caring too deeply about people who might never know the weight he carries for them. The village lights flicker on below, one by one, like stars falling upward into the darkness. Each light represents a life, a family, a story he's sworn to protect. But who protects the protector? Who watches over the one who watches over all? In the gathering dusk, Shikamaru's shadow stretches long across the grass, reaching toward the village like a dark hand trying to hold something precious. His shadows have always been his greatest strength, but sometimes he wonders, what if the darkness he commands is really just the darkness he carries inside himself? The wind picks up, rustling through the trees behind him. It sounds almost like voices, like whispers of approval or understanding. Or maybe it's just the wind. Sometimes, when you're very tired and very alone, it's hard to tell the difference between what's real and what you need to be real. He pulls his knees up to his chest, making himself smaller against the vastness of the evening sky. Up here, away from the expectations and the plans and the endless games of strategy, he can just be a young man who misses his friends, who wonders if being smart is worth being lonely, who dreams of a world where the hardest decision is whether to take a nap or watch the clouds. What if thinking too much is its own kind of prison? He asks the darkness, and the darkness, in its wisdom, says nothing back. Sometimes the most honest answer is silence. The stars begin to appear, one by one, like thoughts becoming clear in a mind that's finally ready to rest. Each star, a memory, each memory, a small light against the dark. And for just this moment, just this breath, Shikamaru allows himself to stop planning, stop analyzing, stop carrying the weight of tomorrow. Tonight, he's just a boy under the stars, remembering what it feels like to simply exist. Do you know what it's like to always know the answer? To see the outcome of every choice before others have even understood the question? It sounds like a gift, doesn't it? But gifts, Shikamaru has learned, often come wrapped in loneliness. He remembers being a child, watching his father play shogi with the other adults, seeing 17 moves ahead while they struggled with 3. Even then, he knew that being right all the time would cost him something precious, but he was too young to know what that something was. Now he knows. It's the cost of surprise, the cost of being wrong in a way that brings joy instead of consequence, the cost of not having to be the one with the plan, the backup plan, and the plan for when the backup plan fails. Every strategy is just another way of being alone, he thinks, watching a lone bird circle overhead. The bird doesn't plan its flight. It simply trusts its wings, trusts the wind, trusts that the air will hold it. When was the last time Shikamaru trusted anything that completely? He thinks of his teammates, his friends, the people who look to him when things get complicated. They see his strategies as brilliant, but he sees them as cages he builds around possibility. Every plan is a limitation. Every right answer closes off 100 other paths. In the academy, other children played games. He solved them. While they laughed at jokes, he analyzed the social dynamics that made humor work. While they formed friendships naturally, he calculated the most efficient way to maintain social bonds. It wasn't that he didn't feel, it was that he felt everything through the filter of understanding, and understanding sometimes is the enemy of simply experiencing. The moon rises higher, casting silver light across the hill. In that light, his shadow looks less like a jutsu and more like what it really is, a place where light cannot reach. Everyone sees his brilliance, but who sees the shadows that brilliance creates? Who sits with him in the dark, places where even smart people get scared? What if the smartest thing would be to stop thinking so much? The question hangs in the air, like incense, sweet and impossible, because he knows he can't stop. His mind is like a river that's forgotten how to be still. It moves and moves and moves, carrying him toward answers he isn't sure he wants to find. But maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Maybe being the one who thinks ahead means accepting that you'll often walk alone. Maybe the loneliness isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature, the price of keeping others safe from the choices they don't have to make because he's already made them. The wind shifts, bringing with it the scent of home, cooking fires, and blooming flowers, and the particular smell of peace. It's a peace he's helped create, helped maintain, helped protect. And if the cost of that peace is his own, well, some prices are worth paying, even if they hurt. In the quiet of his room, surrounded by scrolls and strategy manuals, Shikamaru does something he's never told anyone about. He writes letters, not reports or plans or official correspondence, but real letters. Letters to people he's lost, letters to people he's failed, letters to the parts of himself he had to leave behind to become who he needed to be. Tonight, like so many nights before, he pulls out a clean sheet of paper and begins. Dear Asuma-sensei, have you ever tried to write to someone who can't write back? It's like shouting into an empty canyon, hoping the echo will sound like forgiveness. The words come slowly at first, then faster, like water breaking through a dam he didn't know he'd built. I've been thinking about what you said about king and pawn. I think I understand now. The king isn't the most important piece, because it's the strongest. It's important because everything else makes sense in relation to it. You were our king, weren't you? Not because you were perfect, but because protecting you gave our moves meaning. His handwriting gets smaller as he continues, as if the words are trying to hide from their own honesty. I miss the way you'd get excited about small things, the way you'd smile when one of us finally understood something you'd been trying to teach us. I miss having someone who expected me to be better without making me feel broken for not being perfect yet. The candle flickers, casting dancing shadows on the wall. In those shadows, he can almost see Asuma's face, patient and knowing and kind, almost hear his voice saying something encouraging and slightly embarrassing, the way teachers do when they love you more than you know how to let them. I've been leading teams now, trying to be for them what you were for us. But I don't know how to smile the way you did. I don't know how to make people feel safe and challenged at the same time. Mostly, I just try not to get them killed. And that feels like such a small goal compared to what you accomplished. He pauses, listening to the night sounds outside his window. Somewhere, a cricket is singing. Somewhere else, someone is walking home late, their footsteps quiet on the empty streets, life continuing the way it does, whether we're ready for it or not. I want you to know that I kept my promise. I'm protecting the king. All the kings, actually. Everyone who can't protect themselves. But sometimes I wonder if I'm doing it right, if I'm using the gifts you helped me discover, or just hiding behind them. The letter grows longer, meandering through memories and regrets and small moments of joy that only Asuma would understand. The time Shikamaru accidentally called him Dad, and they both pretended it didn't happen. The way Asuma's cigarette smoke smelled like safety. The look in his eyes when he was proud of something his students had done. When he finally finishes, the sun is beginning to rise. He folds the letter carefully, walks to his window, and holds it out to the morning breeze. For just a moment, he lets himself imagine that somewhere, somehow, Asuma is reading over his shoulder, nodding approval, maybe even smiling. Then he lets the wind take the letter, watching it disappear into the sky, like a prayer he's finally brave enough to send. Some conversations don't need answers. Some words just need to be said. There's a moment, just before a plan comes together, when everything hangs in balance. Not the dramatic balance of combat, but the quiet balance of possibility. It's in that space, between the idea and the action, between the problem and the solution, that Shikamaru feels most like himself. Tonight, he's thinking about that space, about the pause before the move, the breath before the word, the silence before the strategy unfolds. Most people are afraid of that silence. They fill it with movement, with noise, with anything but the terrible weight of potential. But Shikamaru has learned to love it. What lives in the space between thoughts? He wonders, lying on his back in the grass, staring up at the vast expanse of star-drunk sky. Between each thought, there's a tiny eternity. Between each heartbeat, a small forever. Between each plan, a moment where anything could happen. He thinks about the people who taught him to value that space. His father, who could sit in comfortable silence for hours, just thinking. His mother, who knew when to speak and when to let quiet do the talking. Asuma, who understood that the best lessons happen in the pauses between words. In the village below, he can see the lights of late-night workers, early morning dreamers, insomniacs like himself, who've made peace with the dark hours. Each light represents someone else who's found something valuable in the spaces everyone else rushes through, the spaces between sleep and waking, between one day and the next, between who you were and who you're becoming. Maybe wisdom isn't knowing what to do, he thinks. Maybe it's knowing when not to do anything at all. This is the hardest lesson for a strategist to learn. Sometimes the best move is no move. Sometimes the most powerful jutsu is patience. Sometimes the greatest strength is in admitting that you don't have all the answers, that some problems solve themselves if you give them enough time and space to breathe. He remembers a game of shogi his father once played, where he spent nearly an hour staring at the board before making a single move. Young Shikamaru had been impatient, fidgeting, wanting to see action, but his father just smiled and said, "The game is won in the waiting, son. Everything else is just moving pieces." Now, he understands. The real game isn't played on the board. It's played in the mind that knows when to act and when to simply be present. The mind that can sit with uncertainty without rushing toward resolution. The mind that trusts the process even when it can't see the outcome. A shooting star streaks across the sky, there and gone in the space of a breath. Beautiful, precisely because it doesn't last. Perfect, because it asks for nothing but the moment it inhabits. What if the point isn't to always have the answer? Shikamaru asks the knight. What if the point is to be comfortable with the question? The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of possibility, full of all the words that don't need to be said, all the moves that don't need to be made, all the strategies that work best when they're allowed to unfold naturally, like flowers opening to the sun. In that silence, he finds something rarer than wisdom, more valuable than strategy. He finds peace. Have you ever carried someone else's dreams? Not physically, but in that quiet space behind your heart where you keep the things too precious to speak out loud. Shikamaru carries more dreams than his own. The weight isn't painful. It's the good kind of weight, like a blanket on a cold night, or a child sleeping in your arms. Tonight, he's thinking about Choji, about the way his best friend looks at food, like it holds all the world's secret, the way he laughs with his whole body, the way he believes in people, even when they don't deserve it. Choji dreams of a world where no one goes hungry, where every meal is shared, where food means love made visible. It's such a simple dream, so pure and uncomplicated that it makes Shikamaru's strategic mind feel clumsy by comparison. How do you plan for kindness? How do you strategize generosity? How do you create a jutsu for making people feel at home in their own skin? He thinks about Ino too, with her fierce loyalty and her refusal to let anyone suffer alone. She dreams of healing not just bodies, but hearts, of creating beauty in a world that sometimes seems determined to stay broken. Her dream isn't loud or dramatic. It's the quiet dream of making things a little better, one person at a time. And Naruto, oh Naruto, with his impossible dream of peace and understanding, his belief that every enemy is just a friend who hasn't been properly introduced. It's the most naive and the most profound dream Shikamaru has ever encountered, and he protects it like a candle flame in a hurricane. What does it mean to carry someone else's hope? He wonders, watching the moon slide between clouds like a secret being passed from hand to hand. It means seeing the world through their eyes sometimes. It means making choices that serve their dreams, even when those choices cost you something. It means being the one who thinks ahead so they can live in the moment, being the one who plans for the worst so they can hope for the best, being the one who calculates the odds so they can believe in miracles. But here's the thing Shikamaru has learned: carrying other people's dreams doesn't make you smaller. It makes you bigger, stronger, more real. Each dream he carries adds a new room to the house of his heart, a new color to the palette of his understanding. He thinks about the missions he's led, the decisions he's made, not just for tactical advantage, but for the kind of world his friends want to live in. Every strategy becomes a love letter to their hopes. Every plan becomes a promise that their dreams matter, that they're worth protecting, that they're possible. The wind picks up, and for a moment, it sounds like laughter. Choji's warm chuckle, Ino's bright giggle, Naruto's irrepressible joy. The sound wraps around him like an embrace, reminding him that love isn't just something you feel. Sometimes it's something you do, something you plan for, something you carry. Maybe the heaviest things we carry are also the most important, he thinks, and the thought doesn't make him tired. It makes him grateful. Tomorrow, there will be new challenges, new problems to solve, new strategies to devise. But tonight, in the gentle darkness, he's content to be a keeper of dreams, a guardian of hopes, a friend who knows that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with jutsu or weapons, but with the simple act of believing in each other. Some weights are privileges, some burdens are blessings, some dreams are meant to be shared. Numbers don't lie, but they don't always tell the truth either. Shikamaru knows this better than most. He's spent his life calculating odds, measuring probabilities, quantifying the unquantifiable. But tonight, he's thinking about the mathematics of loneliness, and the equations don't balance the way they should. One person thinking ahead, for many, one mind holding multiple contingencies, one heart learning to beat in rhythm with a dozen others, each with their own tempo, their own needs, their own fears that need solving. What's the formula for feeling understood? He wonders, tracing patterns in the dirt with his finger. If wisdom equals experience plus reflection, and leadership equals responsibility multiplied by care, then what equals the simple human need to be known by someone who doesn't need you to be smart or strategic or useful? He thinks about the times he's been surrounded by people and still felt completely alone. Meetings where his plans were praised, but his doubts were invisible. Celebrations where his contributions were acknowledged, but his exhaustion went unnoticed. Moments when being right felt like the loneliest thing in the world. But then he thinks about the other mathematics, the addition that happens when someone truly sees you, the multiplication of joy when it's shared, the way two people understanding each other can somehow equal something greater than the sum of their parts. He remembers sitting with his father in comfortable silence, no words needed, because understanding flowed between them like water finding its level. The equation there was simple: presence plus presence equals peace. No solving required. He thinks about Temari, with her sharp mind and sharper tongue, who argues with his strategies, not because she thinks he's wrong, but because she knows he's strong enough to be challenged. With her, the mathematics become playful, two intellects dancing around problems, finding solutions together that neither could reach alone. Maybe loneliness isn't about being alone, he realizes, watching a pair of owls call to each other across the darkness. Maybe it's about being unseen, about having parts of yourself that no one thinks to ask about. There are parts of him that only exist in the spaces between plans, the part that gets scared before big decisions, the part that sometimes wishes someone else would be the smart one for a while, the part that wants to fail at something small and inconsequential just to remember what it feels like to be imperfect without consequences, the part that wonders if anyone would love him if he wasn't useful. But as he sits there, doing the emotional mathematics of his own heart, he realizes something that doesn't fit neatly into any equation. The people who matter most to him don't love him because he's smart. They love him because he uses his intelligence to protect what they care about, because he makes room for their dreams in his strategy, because he sees their worth not as variables in a plan, but as irreplaceable pieces of his world. The equation there is simple and mysterious. Love equals love. It doesn't multiply or divide or balance neatly. It just is. A shooting star crosses the sky, and he makes a wish, not for a solution to loneliness, but for the wisdom to recognize connection when it appears, even if it doesn't look like what he expected, even if it comes wrapped in argument or challenge, or the simple act of someone choosing to sit quietly beside him while he thinks. Sometimes the most profound mathematics happen in the spaces between numbers, in the pauses between calculations, in the silence between one equation and the next, where the heart keeps its own books and the balance always comes out to love. There's a sound that growing up makes, and it's not what you'd expect. It's not dramatic or sudden. It's gentle and persistent, like water wearing away stone. It's the sound of dreams shifting to accommodate reality, of certainty softening into wisdom, of the sharp edges of youth being polished smooth by time and experience. Shikamaru hears that sound tonight, sitting in the place where he sat so many times before, watching the same moon over the same village. But he's not the same person who first climbed this hill, the boy who thought intelligence was the answer to everything, has grown into a man who knows that sometimes there are no answers, only better questions. When did I start choosing duty over desire? He wonders, but it's not a bitter question. It's the kind of question that comes with acceptance, with the understanding that some changes happen so gradually you only notice them in retrospect. He remembers being 12 and thinking adults were impossibly complicated, always worried about things that seemed so far away and abstract. Now he knows those things. Responsibility, legacy, the weight of other people's trust aren't abstract at all. They're as real as his shadow, as constant as his heartbeat. But growing up isn't just about accepting weight. It's also about learning what not to carry. The boy who used to analyze every interaction, every glance, every pause in conversation, has learned that some things are better felt than understood. Some connections happen in the spaces between thoughts. He thinks about the first time he realized his parents weren't infallible, the first time he made a decision his father wouldn't have approved of, the first time he was right about something important that an adult was wrong about. Each realization was like a door opening, scary and liberating in equal measure. Growing up is the art of becoming yourself while remaining connected to everyone else, he thinks, watching a nightbird settle in the branches above him. The bird doesn't question its place in the ecosystem. It simply finds its branch, claims its space, and sings its song into the darkness. He remembers Asuma telling him once that maturity isn't about having all the answers. It's about being comfortable with the questions, about learning to live with uncertainty without being paralyzed by it, about making peace with the fact that every choice closes off other possibilities. The sound of growing up is also the sound of forgiveness, forgiving himself for the mistakes he's made, forgiving others for being human, forgiving the world for being more complicated than any strategy can fully account for. It's the sound of letting go, not of care or commitment, but of the need to control everything. In the village below, he can see the hospital, where people are born and die, the academy, where children learn to be ninjas, the homes, where families sleep peacefully because someone else is awake, watching, planning. The cycle continues, and he's part of it now, not as someone trying to figure out where he fits, but as someone who's found his place and made peace with it. What if growing up is just learning to love what is, instead of mourning what isn't? The question feels like an answer, or maybe answers feel like questions when you've learned to embrace complexity instead of fighting it. The moon begins to set, and soon dawn will come with its duties and decisions and endless, beautiful complications. But for now, in this moment between night and morning, between who he was and who he's still becoming, Shikamaru allows himself to simply exist in the space he's created for himself in the world. He's not the boy who climbed this hill looking for escape anymore. He's the man who climbs it looking for perspective, for the kind of peace that comes not from avoiding responsibility, but from accepting it with grace. Growing up sounds like acceptance, like wisdom, like the quiet joy of finally being at home in your own skin. In the end, after all the strategies and plans and careful calculations, there comes a moment when the only thing left to do is be still. Not the stillness of paralysis or exhaustion, but the stillness of completion, of having found your place in the vast web of connection that holds the world together. Shikamaru sits in his familiar spot as the first light of dawn begins to paint the sky in soft colors, pink and gold, and the particular blue that only exists in the hour when night agrees to become day. He's not planning anything now, not solving anything, not carrying anyone else's burdens or calculating tomorrow's problems. He's just here, present, still. What does it mean to be at peace? He wonders. But the question doesn't demand an answer. It simply exists, like the morning breeze that stirs the grass around him, like the bird song that begins tentatively and then grows into a full chorus of greeting the day. Peace, he's learned, isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of acceptance. It's knowing that you're exactly where you need to be, even if where you need to be is difficult or uncertain or requires more of you than you thought you had to give. He thinks about his shadow, how it's always been both his greatest strength and his most perfect metaphor. Shadows exist because of light. They're not the absence of illumination, but the proof of it. They show depth, dimension, the beautiful complexity that comes when light meets substance. His life has been like that, shaped by the light of other people's trust, other people's dreams, other people's need for someone who could see around corners and plan for dangers they couldn't imagine. The shadow he casts is the shadow of service, of love made practical, of intelligence offered as a gift rather than hoarded as a treasure. The village below is beginning to wake up. Soon there will be missions and meetings and decisions that require his particular brand of careful thinking. But for now, in this moment of perfect stillness, he can appreciate the simple miracle of being exactly who he is, in exactly the place he belongs. Maybe the most radical thing anyone can do is be completely present, he thinks, feeling the solid earth beneath him, the gentle air around him, the vast sky above him, not thinking ahead or behind, not calculating or strategizing, just existing fully in the space between one breath and the next. He thinks about all the people he loves, scattered across the village and beyond, each beginning their own day with their own hopes and challenges and dreams. He carries them with him always, not as burdens, but as blessings. Their trust has made him who he is. Their dreams have given his life meaning. Their love has taught him that intelligence is only valuable when it serves something larger than itself. A cloud drifts across the rising sun, casting a brief shadow over the hill. But the shadow doesn't diminish the light. It makes it more precious, more noticeable, more beautiful when it returns. Everything exists in relationship to everything else. Nothing stands alone. This is enough, Shikamaru realizes, and the realization is both simple and profound. This moment, this place, this complicated and beautiful life, he's built one careful choice at a time. It's enough. Not perfect, not complete, but enough. Real, true, his. The wind picks up, carrying with it the scents and sounds of morning, of a world waking up to new possibilities. Soon, he'll go down into that world, take up his responsibilities, use his gifts in service of the people and places he loves. But first, just for now, he'll sit here in perfect stillness, at peace with himself and his choices, grateful for the shadows and the light, the questions and the answers, the weight and the joy of being exactly who he's meant to be. In the art of being still, he's found the only strategy that truly matters, the strategy of presence, of acceptance, of love, made manifest in the simple act of showing up day after day for the life you've been given and the people who share it with you. The morning is beautiful. The world is vast. His heart is full. It's enough. More than enough. It's everything. And so, our journey together comes to its gentle close, dear traveler, like the morning mist that knows when to lift, like the night that knows when to yield to dawn. Our story finds its natural ending, not in resolution, but in recognition that some of the most important journeys happen not in the moving, but in the stillness that follows. You came here carrying something heavy, and perhaps you still carry it. That's okay. Shikamaru would understand. He'd remind you that some weights are meant to be carried, that some burdens are really privileges in disguise, that the art of living isn't about solving everything, but about being present with whatever comes. Rest now. Let the words settle into that quiet place behind your heart where dreams and memories keep each other company. When you wake, the world will still be complicated and beautiful and demanding, but maybe, like our shadow wielding friend, you'll meet it with a little more peace, a little more acceptance, a little more trust in your own ability to be exactly where you need to be. The clouds are still drifting, the wind is still whispering, and somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, wisdom waits patiently for those brave enough to be still long enough to receive it. Sweet dreams, traveler of the leaves, may your rest be deep and your morning gentle, until we meet again beneath the old tree, where the leaves remember everything, and nothing needs to be conquered, only felt, only remembered, only loved.